Yeah. That's what I was worried, but then I didn't
If I tried this.
Yeah, because you could get those ones.
Right.
The like not do it snap.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't care where
It's just for storage. Oh, I gotta do this thing. Yeah, she brought her name tag along. She hadn't even shown up yet. There's a lot of
So, is there study nutrition with
All right, teachers.
Yes.
I've had the opportunity to walk around and to visit with some of you and your concerns or what you've noticed. I think everybody has had an opportunity to look at consistent structures. Some of you are still looking at the lessons, which that's awesome. Some of you are finished. I would like to discuss this, but I do want to say that towards the end, I know some of you are saying, okay, where is this going to fit? Where is this going to fit? And trust me, that's not just you. That's across the country. You know, there are so many things that you have to get into your day with instruction and just so much time to do it. So we're going to be talking in a little while. We'll get to that part so that you have time, or we have time, to discuss some things. I even had a teacher that brought her teacher resource system in here and started looking at the times for the components of the literacy block. We started talking about how those times are suggested, because on some of those mini lessons, if you've had a chance to look at those for the comprehension, that may not take you 20 minutes. I was in Pennsfield, New Jersey at the beginning of the week, and all I did was model those lessons, mini lessons across grade levels. Sometimes you're finished in 10 minutes. Sometimes it might be 12. So, you know, you have to customize it for your needs, you know, for your classroom. So it's not like you need the whole 20 minutes for that. Now, there may be some days that you do. But I think most of the time you're going to see those are suggested time frames. So you can shave a little bit of that. Now, we don't want to shave into our instruction, but we definitely want to see that and look at your schedules to see how in the world you can fit this in. All right? We will have some time to do it. Let's talk about the teacher's guides. You've had a time to go in and discuss with your colleagues about the consistent structures. Did anybody compare those with another unit that you pulled out earlier? Did anybody look? You did? What kinds of things did you find?
Consistency in the, you know, you have introduce, sort, and then meaning, and then assessment.
Okay. So you have that structure put in place that's consistent. Okay? Anybody want to talk about anything that came up in conversation about that, about those lessons and those structures? Yes?
I did have a question. So
Yes.
what if you don't have school on the 5th day?
That's a very good question.
Okay.
All right, this is what you can do. The way that this is built, it's built in that, I call it the meat or content, is taught mainly on days 1, 2, and 3. Day 4 tends to be your review day. Your dictation, you practice reviewing your spelling words. You do have that word hunt. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, if you're out, let's say, Thanksgiving week, let's say you're only in school days 1, 2, and 3. You could just remember that content days are days 1, 2, and 3. 4th day is pretty much review day, and then 5th day is your assessment day. So if you wanted to teach the content, you could do the content with no problem. But because of that setup, you can decide how you want to handle it. The thing is most teachers, I won't say most, I hope not most, you don't want to say, ooh, well, I'm not going to do word study this week because I only have 3 days instead of 5.
Right.
You know, so, because that 3 good days of explicit instruction makes a huge difference. So what I would suggest is just know that days 1, 2, and 3 are good meat days. You can work on that. If you have to take a grade that week, then you could do it at the end, or days 1 and 2. I mean, you're continuing that same process of word analysis and such. You can handle it however you want to. Giving you that information, does that help at all?
Yeah.
I mean, you could just teach without assessing, or some teachers will go ahead and teach those 3 days, but then next week come back and, you know, continue on, like go back and review that, do some of those other activities that are built in, and so forth. So you have, that would be a choice. Some will say, oh, I taught days 1, 2, and 3. We have it, you know, it's good. I just don't have to have a grade that particular week, so I start on a new unit the following week. Good question. Any others? Okay, what about assessment? Where are the assessment tools?
On the back.
On the back. Do you have any other assessment tools? Yeah, you did. He pointed out that you do have assessments in your overview assessment book. You do. If we're talking by unit, you definitely would have your quick check, but then you also have kind of some informal assessments and assessment tips that are built in to your margins so that you can monitor that progress. So don't forget that you have those because it's checking along the way. Good informal assessment. How about lesson cycle? Does the lesson cycle change from day to day? Pretty much, but it's kind of a consistent structure of the guide, the model guide applied, that gradual release of responsibility, but you're still doing word sorts and you're doing some of the same. So it's consistent across the week, but yes, the cycle changes a little bit daily. All right. Any questions about your exploration? All right, then we can put that aside, but keep your teacher's guide, teachers, because we're going to need it a little bit. By the way, you have a black and white version. This is a 5th grade lesson that you were looking at. Okay, it was 5th grade. Yes.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
What I don't understand, and maybe I'm just not seeing this everywhere, I am seeing a focus on spelling, and I'm seeing a focus on pronunciation. And then in the assessments, students are putting the word in, well, I don't know if this is the assessment, or even if it's just a practice, but students are looking at these 4 words and having to put it into the right sentence according to the definition. So where?
Within. It's mentioned with the Black Line Masters, and you can go in within the Black Line Masters, and you will see that on certain days, they're going to be working with certain vocabulary words. With your within. When it mentions it, because you're going to find a lot of the information in the margins, but when you see this, you know that they're going to be working with the words. For one, they're going to be working on that vocabulary through like the meaning sorts, and we'll be talking about that when you get to the meaning sorts part. Also, if you're doing with whatever prefixes, suffixes, or whatever, but you're going to be doing meaning sorts, and you're going to have, as you go through, there are going to be days where you're working on certain words. Now, there's not a page you're going to find that says, here are the vocabulary words and write the meaning of it. You won't find that.
No, I'm not asking for that. I guess what I'm saying is, for example, here, we've got, in the sample that you gave us, we have the endings. In the sample that I was looking at in my box, I have the endings. So this ending says it will turn the word into an adjective. This ending says it'll turn the word into a noun. These, in the one that you just gave us, these endings, I use this ending. If it ends in a T, I put an ION. If it ends in an IC, I put an IAN. So that's an ending. That changes the word.
Right.
But now I've got sentences where my student has to know what adoption means, or digestion, or invention, or magician. So where is the component where they learn the adopt, or the digest, or the invent, or the magic part where they, or here the word bank, distraction, diagnostician, distortion, electrician.
Those are the ones that what's going to happen is during the sorts throughout the week, you're going to be talking about if anything changed with whatever meaning, with the suffix, you're going to the part of speech, but you're also, when you're going through your word sorts and you're talking about that, that's when you do bring out, that's when you're going to bring out like those words and what they mean, like with just a user-friendly definition. Some of them, you definitely want to bring out any that are going to be tested on for sure, but there are words you're going to be learning vocabulary from just through the dialogue or the peer work that's going to happen between you and the students from the teacher guided sorts, going in and talking about what some of those words mean, and they're going to gain it from that. And what you can guide from, of course, is what you have looked at, but it's not going to be like a direct, using it in a sentence or in context, and bringing out in a direct teach. It's going to be indirect through the conversations and dialogue that you're going to have with the student as you introduce the words and as they start sorting those.
Okay, one more question, I'm sorry to keep
No,
pushing.
this is fine, this is fine.
Okay, I know what all of these words on this page mean. Just as an example.
Right?
I know what all of these words mean. But if I give this to my students and they don't know what all these words mean or what all these word part means, and I don't know what the whole scope and sequence, so maybe con or dom was covered somewhere before, so they should have that. But what I'm asking is, where is the support in this program that says, like the definition of this word for a kid who just doesn't have that? It's not on the back, it
No,
isn't like
and it's not. If you look at, for those of you that do Words Their Way, or those of you that are, have been really getting into word study, one of the things that is said is that this is our word study. Vocabulary comes through with the vehicle of the sorts and working on it. Mainly, it's not the point that they know every meaning of every word. It's looking at a lot of words and seeing how they are similar or different and coming to generalizations. And so it's not going to be a direct vocabulary thing more than word study. But what I do when I do the lessons or model lessons for teachers, when you're doing that, there may be some that you know that your kids absolutely know. But then you're going to see some that they're not going to know. So just giving them a user-friendly definition at that point, but they are building some meaning through going through what those, like you're saying, endings or beginnings mean. And what we can do is towards the end of this, we can even look at that further. I'll bring out some more lessons. We can talk about it more. Let's go to this part, and then we'll get back to that, because that is teachers, when they're talking about vocabulary, this is more word study than vocabulary, but through the researchers or experts in the area, they're saying vocabulary comes with working with words. And in working with words, you're going to be working with them in many different ways, even through the word hunts, the different types of sorts, and then you just giving user-friendly definitions, because if we did vocabulary, just vocabulary, because this is more focused on word study with the vocabulary through the means of sorting and working with the words. If we did vocabulary, it would be more directly taught, like with Isabel Beck and her colleagues, and bringing words to life, where you say the word, you give a user-friendly definition, you use it in several different, contexts, and then give examples of other contexts, and then saying the word and kind of playing with them. And in that would be more vocabulary directly taught. And in here, it's word study vocabulary in working with words in all of these different ways, and coming to know the meanings of it through that study, but also through the teacher bringing that out when you are working with words. First thing that I do, as if we're going through it, if it's for the teacher, because it follows that gradual release of responsibility, if it's for the teacher, I'm going to automatically, if I go through and I'm saying what the words are, I may say very quickly what, user-friendly, what adoption means, or what, bringing that out because it's coming for a discussion more than like a direct teach. And we'll look at some more. We'll look at some more towards the end, because I've heard that before, and so we can definitely do that a little bit later.
I guess what I'm thinking is, from a teacher perspective, again, and I don't know how the whole program is built. I'm at the highest end, so I don't know, by the time the students get to me, they would have gone through all of these start, build, spiral.
Yeah.
But, in terms of, as a teacher-friendly tool with everything everything in here that I would need, even a list of those definitions so that I can take a dictionary definition and I can make it more user-friendly on the fly.
Like my friend with the application on his phone.
So I'm just.
I know what you're saying, yeah. And we can, seriously, we can talk about how to do it later, okay? Let's go ahead and look at the different things. You've had an opportunity to look at the lessons. This is just pretty much your framework for any given unit or any given week. Always, reviewing there, kind of the spiral, but reviewing what you learned, introducing what the new concept is, and the spelling words. And do remember, the spelling words are listed only on day 1, okay? Then you're getting into word sorts pretty much on days 2 and 3, and different ones. Sometimes you have 2 sorts. I'm trying to think if any of them have maybe even 3, but the third would be like a small sort, maybe they do with a buddy and so forth. But we'll look at that, because that goes back to what can they do during that independent time while you're working, how to fit it in. We're going to talk about that, because there are some things that students can do on the tail end of your lessons. They can actually do that part during their independent work time while you're doing your guided reading or some of that. So that's not all happening, during that piece. So that will save you a little time there. But we're gonna explore that a little bit later, okay? So we can see how that would work for you. Day 4, we've already talked about that. Pretty much be the review week with the word hunt passage, and just my friend back here and talking about if you only have school 3 days a week. One of the things that I would do is I would make sure that I did the word hunt passage, maybe pull it in on day 3 or something that they could do like with a buddy during that time of going through, looking for words that follow that pattern of study. And reading together. And yes, from one of my other friends over here in the middle, not all of your kids are going to be able to read those passages. Absolutely, because you have to think these are the core these are just the standards across for everyone. So you're going to have kids that can't read those because they are difficult for some of your kids. What you do with those is most of the time that's done with a partner, or with a small group, 2 or 3 kids, where they can look at it together and find it, work together, small group. That's another thing that they could do independently or with one another while you're working with a group of students. So there are several different things that you can do, but I would definitely pull that in. You want to make sure that one of those students definitely could read that text with when you pair them up or work in small groups. But I just think it's important to get the different genres of text and to see the connected text where they actually see some of these types of words that you're studying within context. And then, of course, day 5 is the spelling assessment. And remember that first spelling assessment in there, it's done like, say the word, what you're used to, but then you have that quick check assessment that really breaks it down from what you've been doing throughout the week. And then those suggestions for small group and independent practice. Teachers, that doesn't mean that you have to use those, okay? It does not mean you have to use those. But they are put there to help you if you do see some specific kids that really need support or scaffolding in some particular area, that whatever those suggestions are on day 5, you might see that, I can pull those 2 or 3 kids back and do this particular activity with them, or give them instruction to let them work on it, with a partner, small group. There are lots of different ways you can use that. Sometimes I even pull mine in, to day 3, or it doesn't matter what day. It's look at the need, and then you can utilize the resource however you want to use it. Okay. This is where I'm going to show you the different kinds of sorts. These are cool.
I have a question, just a quick one. When it has the unit spelling words, are those on the poster all the time, or did they use some of them on the poster or not?
Some. I don't think that it's consistent of always having those particular ones, because when they have what it is that they're learning, the concepts, they're always going to have different examples, so they may be using different examples as well.
I have a question
Just,
too.
yes.
Would we continue to send home a list of words, these 8 words, or do you just send home the sorts, or?
I knew that question was coming up.
Then why didn't you just answer without letting me ask it?
I was just gonna wait.
Oh, okay.
Actually, no, I was picking with you. Actually, talked with Mary Jo, had dinner last night, and so we were talking about the different aspects of the word, study vocabulary and phonics that's being done with kindergarten through second downstairs, and talking about getting away from the traditional spelling deal. Because one of the things that you want to teach is that we're not into memorizing, we're into learning about words and knowing the pattern of words. If you can spell it right in these words, that most chances are that you'll be able to do that and with it, in others that are of the same. The thinking behind the district with this is just to teach it as is, because it's like a developmental process through that week, through that whole week of instruction, and that it would be great if your kids, instead of doing all spelling homework, that they could spend that time reading with their parents, siblings, or whoever. So it does not come with a list that you send home. No. That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Well, that's my answer. I'm sticking to it. No, but seriously, they're going to be developing these as they move through the week. So it's not, we don't want to promote memorization. We want that to be a process that happens throughout, that they discover and are able to do. And with your 8 words that you have there that are the focus words, that takes a lot of pressure off of, well, if I can spell these words are representative of, all the other words that I'm going to be exposed to and I'm going to be working with. So it gets away from that, let's don't memorize that list at home. This is a process that we work through.
You're still assessing those words.
Yeah. But there's not a work list here to say, here's the list to send home on Monday.
So how important is that they get 100% on those?
See, I knew that was coming up. How about we do this? Let me table that too, and we will get to it. I mean, if that's a concern. In fact, I forgot to tell you this. On your Post-its, if you don't mind, those specific questions or any other questions that you have, if you will write those down, we'll be taking another break in just a little bit. And if you'll just bring them and put them right here, I can make sure that we take a look at those and we make sure that we address those before y'all leave. And I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that, but this will be our parking lot. And whatever questions you have or concerns you have, put them in the parking lot so that I can help address those, or we can get district people that can also help address those. Okay? All right, here we go. Word sorts. They are going to provide that opportunity for students to discover, categorize words in meaningful ways. They're going to be able to see generalizations, and that's going to help them in supporting vocabulary, encoding, and decoding in more complex text. Here are some of the types of sorts you have. You're going to see common feature sorts, where you have the category headings there. Students are going to sort words and discuss similar meanings. You have meaning sorts just by building automaticity in appropriate categories that are really focusing on meaning. This is an example to show you common features. Here are your features: spec, port, and form. So if these particular things are being studied that week, then you can see how those words are sorted accordingly. And most of the time, first in this kind, your kids are going, oh, spec, 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 spec. I know that some of you have been doing words their way, probably that you've seen that. But the whole thing is that is the first step in noticing that, oh, this has this particular feature and so forth, and then we're going to build from there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I'm gonna go back to my same point before, and I'm sorry about that. But when these are taught, are they also teaching what does spec mean, what does port mean, what does form mean?
Right there. You're going to have your meaning sorts. So you know that port means to carry, you know that you have form, which means shape, you have spect, which means look at, and it won't always be literal, but I'm going to give you a couple of literal things here. Let's talk about portfolio. If I know that, ooh, I'm not sure I know what that word means, but I know that port, we've worked with words with port, I know that port does mean carry. So I'm going to look at the next part of the word, and it's folio, some kind of journal or book or something that's put together. So I know that portfolio must be some kind of book or thing that, or journal or notebook or something put together that I carry. Now that's a more literal aspect, and they're not always that way, but think about it this way. If you see portfolio in a sentence, and even within several sentences, looking at it within context, if they know that part, then they have some knowledge about the word. Now they read the rest of the sentence or sentences within that paragraph, that's going to help them comprehend what that is saying to them. It kind of goes back to our earlier practice in using word parts to help us figure out what words are that we're not familiar with. That's how that works. Now, if I do transform, now every kid will know that, won't they? Because Transformers, the movie, and so forth. But we know that trans means change, form means shape, transform, change shape. And then I like to look, here's one with retrospect. You know, I know that spect means to look at. And retro, something that's already been, looking back, you know, it's happened already. Retrospect, maybe it's like looking back at something that's already been. And then, of course, if I take what little I know about that, because I've studied it in word study, I read the whole sentence or the sentences surrounding it, and I can figure out and comprehend what that's talking about. Also, of course, it's going to help me with my encoding, you know, my writing. Because I know the different ways to spell the particular pattern or feature or whatever it is that you're studying. But those are just examples of like a meaning sort. Some other sorts will be patterns. Just looking at different patterns of vowels and consonants and so forth. Sounds. Here are some examples of patterns looking at, you know, vowel, consonant vowel or the doublets and so forth. You can see those as you look through the words. Then you're getting into like the stress, you know, the syllable stress. So in this particular one, I just did a sound sort with long vowels and short vowels, but their stress is still on the first syllable. So you can see that that's the way that I categorized that. The other types of word sorts that you're going to see, some of the others are going to be blind sorts, speed sorts, of course, which build automaticity, you know, buddy sorts, even writing sorts. So you're going to have lots of different types of sorts that kids are going to be working on. Now, you do have that spelling component so that you can reinforce word analysis. You're also going to be teaching those students how to map those sounds, you know, to print. Then you have reinforcing the strategy of the spelling by having multisyllabic words. And I think probably, I don't know if you could see it with the lesson that I got, or the unit I gave you. I don't know if you saw it with the one that you pulled out. In a little bit, you can look at some different ones. But you're going to find that since this is in the syllable juncture stage or derivational constancy, we're looking at difficult words. So if you start looking at multisyllabic words, then you're going to start seeing that a lot of them are going to become content area words, because some of your more difficult ones are when you look at them. Is because you don't talk, you know, in conversation. We don't get into some of these really complex patterns. But anyway, you have the reinforcing of using the spelling of the multisyllabic words, and I will tell you, they're going to be interesting, and they're also going to come up where you're teaching them in science or social studies and even math, when you're going to see some good words through there. You are going to have those reading passages that you use on day 4, which is the word hunt. And they are going to be very interesting. And they're fiction and nonfiction. You have different types, which we want to be exposed to different types. Okay, we're about to get into a lesson activity. Before we do, we need to take a break. I need a break. I've had so much water already. But anyway, I want to get into the lesson. I want you to be able to see what the lesson is like. You're going to be working in small groups. Each of you can take a day, okay, within your group. You're going to read through that lesson and study it, know what's happening, and then you're going to share that week unit, that unit throughout that week with those people in your group. What happens on day one? This is what I'm doing. And I'm even going to give you the word sorts so that those of you that have the word sorts for those particular days will be able to have the word sorts so that you can do the sorts. So that you'll have actual experience doing some of the lessons yourself. And I think I have plenty that we can have, like one pair of scissors per group. And you can do those up, remembering that you don't have to do these individually or independently. Work 2 or 3 or within your whole group, if there are 4 of you or whatever, that you can only need one cut out. Yes?
When modeling the sorts, are they available on Smart or online?
It's being worked on right now.
Okay.
Not as of right now. I mean, I don't have it ready for you now, but it's being worked on. In fact, not only that's being worked on in New York to get smartboard resources and things of that nature, but we do have your word study resources. All of your lessons, your units, everything are online. So if you're at home or wherever and you want to look it up or print it out or whatever, you can access it. And I'll give that to you a little bit later too. But you will have that online right now. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and let's take about a 15-minute break, and then we'll come back. I'll hand out your resources, and oh, sorry.
We're done at 11?
I just don't want to do it.
Are we really? Yeah. Then y'all need to afford me 5 minutes. How about this? Well, see, I was just moving on.
Oh, sorry.
Thought I had longer.
Go a little beyond that.
How about this? Can I get you to help me out then with the materials? We'll get that going, and then you guys can be working on it, okay? And if you need to stand up and stretch very quickly, you can. Well, we'll get that going. Can I have one person from every group? So if you're working like 4 or whatever, one person come up and get scissors.
All right, I'll go get scissors.
A lesson.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you will get them.
If you want.
Actually, there are 3. So all they need is one. And a scissors. Scissors?
We need the scissors, we need the sword, dates.
Oh, you need that. Yep, here.
That's right.
Or she has paper in there. There you go. I think that
You have to make questions.
I tried to keep it
Sit back there.
all right. Here. Thank you. They're in
No, she's got the best. So you gotta be very talented. She doesn't have any pens at home anymore. She had actually many artists, but she offered me the demo here. Sure, you might not like that. No, I don't.
Okay, while I was getting supplies,
Not the bounce back.
All right, I'll take day 1. Wow, that was tough.
Actually, I'll take 5. That's the assessment day.
You already know that one.
I don't have time to study it. You have the lesson. Yeah, because the ION and IAN, yeah.
I'd much rather do one more. I was waiting for you. I was looking at Sandy. I was looking at me, because I thought you're the right. I give everybody
I'll take 5. I take one as good. So I'm glad you straightened me out.
Well, like she said, for the,
They don't eat that.
I don't think she gave us any.
Had one set. Or run off or there's a black master.
Jeez, that's hard.
You were done.
Me too, but I'm not. Do you have the poster? Okay, here it is.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Pace. Here's the part that I think is critical because if some students have difficulty reading the words, they're going to have trouble reading them. So like that it was in that. But what did I? Okay. Just learned how word 5.
So is this word study to know how to spell the
I know.
We just recognize them as reason.
Three are the
but that's if you were to make sure we could figure it out. Carol did say we were going to.
Although sometimes you need to look at you.
It might have, I don't remember.
I get the word study number. Seriously, I mean, that's what they're doing.
I need the list of words. I don't think so.
Me too, have page that was special piece calendar, grades 3 through 5, and you when you know why, so you need a week until they This is kinesthetic. Come on, like for all of that. I'm freezing. I'm gonna run.
I have a little desk here. I like it. Have that.
Yeah. Have your screen right here. I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's like
Well, you can work with us, or you can work with us, we got it cut already.
All right. How do I know which one that is? The option. Mine's in 3 now.
She showed us that chart that said report, what meant and resource.
That's like I have you.
I know, one meant grade 3, and I thought it was
But I'm okay with that because that's nowhere else on this stuff. This doesn't make sense. We're gonna do this every week.
No, it doesn't make sense. Or 2, 3, and 4.
Well, I have a speed sort too.
You have both of them. Yeah.
Holy word, I thought day 3 was the sorting day. Sorts. What's on this thing? Okay, but where's the base part for?
Probably the same thing as
That's what I thought.
and it's
Is there
probably.
anything else up there that goes with our unit as?
And then they can see that it's equivalent.
Would do it. What is that?
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, that's your poster.
Oh, display the category cards, base T and base I, C, in the pocket chart.
That's your anchor chart. That's why I said, no, it's a poster.
Did you get something?
No, got nothing, sorry. I need the first, second, third.
Base T and I, C.
Yep, that's here.
Holy cow, you guys, come on now.
Okay, let's start. You have to use the base word.
Well, there's for both of them.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Mine is very confusing.
There's not a line, because I have to use the answer.
I am doing a mini
I'm not sorry, I'm sort of reading.
I done it.